So I wrote a book. More specifically, it's this silly little book I wrote back in 10th grade. Don't mind the shit all over the fucking pages and cover. And yeah, basically, I wrote this book in 10th grade for creative writing class. I have no idea how the concept came about, but like I just randomly thought, hey, what if some random person's entire like blood system was just replaced with blueberry? So, which meant like the redness around their skin, the redness in their eyes, any like somewhat pink orangey thing that surrounds the body is just blue. It's just blue now. Just no explanation. You're somehow living, but it's just blueberry. I guess before we start, I'd like to show off the paper that I got when I finally managed to get it graded. I would have gotten a 96, but it was late, so I got an 86 instead. I got 5 points off because it was late. You don't fucking play with high school teachers, man. You don't fucking play at all. It's a pretty strange story with some rather disturbing things happening to your character, but it is a story, and it does follow the path of Freytag's Pyramid. Yeah, we're learning about Freytag's Pyramid, so yeah. Perhaps a final proofread to clean up a few small errors, and yeah. I did manage to retype the entire thing out, and I did fix up a couple of errors, but yeah. Maybe start the story not on the back of the cover, but on the first page. Yeah, for some reason I decided to like tape or glue the first page on the back of the cover, which is really strange. I don't know why I did that. Because you have so much space left, you could use the larger font and have less text on each page. That would have made it easier to read. It would have been the case, but then that meant I would have had to like draw more stuff, and I was under a strict deadline considering it was late. So, yeah, this is a reading of my 10th grade creative writing project, My Eyes. So, yeah. Tom was just having an absolutely miserable day. It had just started 7 hours ago. His alarm woke him up, and already everything was numbing, stinging, and hurting around his body. His back was really sore, and his chest was compressed, so he had a hard time breathing. His left eyebrow and his entire forehead were dry and itchy, but feared of completely ripping them both from his body if he dared to pick at them, which was annoyingly tempting. There were so many strands of hair all over his bed and face to cover his vision, and his limbs were numbing worse than going through puberty. If he dared to move a muscle, he was going to get hit with never-ending pain and numbness. He had work, however, so he had to push through. The last thing he felt were his eyes, which were stinging beyond repair. They looked like someone dumped them into a pot of lemon juice mixed with shampoo and bubble water. Not only that, but they felt like it went through a winter storm considering how incomprehensibly dry they were. His eyelids stung like hell and were covered in body grease. He figured it was all from the strands of hair, but he had trouble trying to sleep a couple of hours earlier, so his conclusion was fatigue. He could cool down and give water to his eyes, but that also came at the cost of his lids themselves being stuck together like glue, forcing him to drift back off to sleep. He also wished he could, but he also remembered that he had a very important meeting for work that day, and is widely considered by his coworkers as the second boss, considering how well he manages his suggestions in the meetings. Poor Tom just wanted the continued acceptance he always had and craved. So he got up and immediately fell face first onto the floor. Phenomenal performance. Definitely worth the future promotion for sure. He grabbed a mirror and looked at himself. He, of course, screamed and threw the mirror across the room in horror. Not at the sight of his forehead or his eyebrows, not even in the context of the pain in his eyes, but how his eyes themselves looked. They were blue.
Why are you blue?
Like blueberry snow cone blue. In fact, everything that was supposed to be even slightly red or pink in his body was replaced by this uncomfortably inhuman blue. He thankfully could think of a good excuse, that he spilled blueberry snow cone all over himself. He could probably be demoted in the process, but at least that'll be the least of his worries. He drunkenly stumbled off into the bathroom to brush his teeth, but he was trying to stay awake and was passing in and out, and in the process, cut his gum with his toothbrush. He was somehow bleeding out of his gums and his mouth, with the toothpaste reaching said cut, making it sting painfully badly. That wasn't too bad of a cut, he thought to himself, holding back tears of pain. The bleeding stopped, and he paid attention to the taste of the blood. It tasted like blueberry. Whatever in the ever-loving hell this could all mean, he said out loud. This is pretty neat, I suppose. It might be a bit of a problem donating blood from now on, but he'll manage. He begrudgingly put on his suit and grabbed his briefcase. He did a double check around his room to see if he missed anything. He may not have thought so, but in retrospect, he missed a total of 3 things: his dignity, his sleep, and his watch. He went up to the stairs and immediately fell, considering how bad his fatigue was. He laid flat on the bottom of the stairs for a total of 92 seconds, snoring. He jumped up, with the pain receiving back into his brain as he very slowly cracked his bones back into place. "Your job isn't gonna be that bad," they said, he said, wincing in pain. "You're gonna be A-okay, they said." He brewed his normal morning work coffee until the mug itself broke due to the coffee being too hot for the mug, with some of the pieces tearing and soaking up his pants. Despite his thigh bleeding because of one of the shards, he rushed back up to his room and got a new pair of pants which just weren't his size. The blueberry blood would bleed into his pants, making a decently sized stain. It kinda looked like he pissed himself. He ran out of his apartment with the now broken coffee mug in true defiant Tom spirit, but tripped once more, this time tearing his face clean off thanks to the really rough concrete. He got up, still running, but around him people screamed and gawked in horror at the sight of what appeared to be some freezer zombie with bladder problems, with his face peeled off looking to stab someone with his broken mug. The cold morning wind dried up the blood streaming from his peeled off face, making him a human mirror. He was nearing the bus stop, which was about to leave. Right when it began to take off, he rushed to the back of the bus and clinged onto its bars while keeping his toes on the rear for dear life, like an action flick. For a few minutes, everything was going according to plan, besides a couple of minor hard breaks and bumps here and there. Another car was in just as much of a hurry as it came towards its rear. The driver saw something familiar. "Tom?" he said to himself. Hang on, he thought. Did he piss himself? Since Tom's fatigue was so bad, he'd lose his grip, slamming his body onto the car. Thankfully, the driver had pretty great driving skills and was able to see through the body that was blocking his view. He knew Tom well, despite his bloody, icy face. "John!" exclaimed Tom. "You gotta help me, man!" "Don't worry, bro," John said. "Come on and hop on in." He swung the car door open and Tom leaped in, again, like an action flick. A few awkward minutes would pass, and both the bus and car eventually made it to their workstation buildings. "So," John said awkwardly, "how good was that snow cone?" "Decent," Tom responded almost immediately. Silence. John asked another question. "Why in the world would you be eating a snow cone during the fall?" Tom responded, "Did you hear about the temperature last night?" John nodded in realization. It's true. It sure was pretty uncommonly hot last night. 74 degrees in autumn is pretty unusual, but the norm for global warming standards. John took another look at Tom's wet pants. "You were drunk last night," John claimed, "weren't you?" "Absolutely not," Tom responded defensively. "Okay," John said back, "just wondering." Every single person would run up to their workstation in the building. Looks like Tom wasn't alone in his tardiness. That bus was just as late. Though, they were all right on time as the boss slammed open the door to check up on everyone at their computer workstations. He only spoke in grunts, but motioned with his hands to everyone that a meeting was about to begin in 15 minutes, and that he had his eyes on them all. He walks off to relax in the conference room. 14 minutes would pass. Every single worker stopped what they were doing and rushed into the conference room to attend the meeting. The meeting itself was full of basic statistical updates. That was, until the boss grunted, asking if anyone has any suggestions to make the stocks rise a tad bit higher. Tom raised his hand, understanding his cue. Everyone just now took notice of him and his icy, mirror-like face. "Mr. Freeze!" someone in the back yelled. "Is that you?" Everyone, except for Tom, John, and the boss, were laughing and were all high-fiving each other. The boss growled in anger and used hand motions to communicate with the workers that everyone should learn to not judge Tom, that everyone is special and unique in their own way, that we all live in a modern era where judging people is morally incorrect and looks bad for the company, blah blah blah. After that pretty long speech, while people were still holding in their laughter and resisting making Mr. Freeze puns, the boss lets Tom speak. He blurts out something incoherent through the bloody ice that was covering his mouth, then falls off his chair onto the floor on his left side, making the frozen blood around his face crash like glass. Even the shattering sounded like glass, too. His audibly bloody face drips a huge blue puddle on the floor as he twitches. His eyeballs were also separated from his face, and they were just as blue yet inflaming as they were that morning. Even a couple of teeth were lying around, too. Everyone around him was unamused and confused, but one thing was certain. Tom was dead. Just as John was about to point out the thing that was wrong with Tom, everyone else in the room laughed. And the boss motioned in sign language for John to grab a styrofoam cup to scoop up the blueberry juice as he was laughing. John nervously joined in on the laughter. People, sometimes you need them, but sometimes they don't need you. The end.